Hey everyone. I'm going to keep my promise now and do the PGA letter. My intention was when I at this starting point is to go through Blake Lively's letter and all of the attached letters from the various heads of department, etc., who wrote in support of her. But I don't want to just read it. I want to look at it. What does the letter do from a legal perspective to her claims? But also, I wanted to go back. I want to do this a bit more. When I first started, because I think I've only been doing YouTube since June, July. Before then, I was writing all of these very, very long threads. This is one of my earliest ones. It's 17 posts in it, and it's detailed. A lot of research goes into it, a lot of time to write it, find all the sources, etc. These posts, in each post here, takes hours to do. And at the time when we were getting, filings every couple of weeks or something, it was, you know, within my capacity to write stuff like this. And I think I did up to kind of, the subpoena sidetracked me for several weeks and then I fell behind. I just did not, I was unable to catch up. The volume of stuff we're getting out today, I clearly, as just one person, without a team or anything, I could not keep up with this. So this is why I don't really do it too much anymore. I prefer actually writing like this, and I know a lot of people say, "Oh, but I love the threads. I like reading stuff and reading my thoughts. I love writing them. In all honesty, I'm far more confident writing something because I'm aware. I've said this before. This is not news, but I'm aware. I've had I had a stroke 10, 12 years ago, and it left me with a bit of speech problems and not a stammer, but pauses and confidence issues, I guess. So I'm not a natural speaker anymore, but I do my best and I'm gaining confidence anyway. Just from doing this. Like if you look at some of my earliest videos compared to some of the more recent ones, I've gained a lot of confidence. So this has been very therapeutic doing this. But again, sometimes, you know, it's a bit of a struggle or people don't like how I come across, which is unfortunate. But I wanted to go back to this one with this video because I had a theory on the PGA and the relevance the 17-point list had on Lively getting the PGA. How much of those demands were actually set up for her to get the PGA? And again, I have to kind of put myself back in the time when I wrote this, which was back in February. All we had to go on was kind of evidence wise, we had Wayfarer's first amended complaint and their attached exhibit of timeline. So there was very, very little. I think at the time I wrote this, I thought the most significant script change was the rooftop, and there was kind of nothing there to say that Lively had done a lot more changes to the script. There was little hints to, oh, yeah, but she wrote that, and she added those kisses, unscripted kisses, into this, so on and so forth. There's little hints. There was nothing there to tell us the scale of how much she had tinkered with the script, let alone anything else. So going from that point in time and the information we had available at that point in time, I formed this and I wanted to go back to this before I read her letter because I want to refresh my memory and also share with everyone who's watching what I was thinking at the time. And then I want to compare and contrast and see, firstly, how close I was to the mark. But secondly, I want to try and I think I'm going to do some videos where I can go and bring in stuff like this. Like I say, we also looked at the Writers Guild Constitution of Work, the Writers Guild Constitution Code of Working Rules, and whether Ryan Reynolds breached them. by writing the rooftop scene. So it'd be good to get some of this stuff into videos now and bring it back to the forefront. Okay, so I start this post and I say there was a specific point I said I would cover separately, and that's because it may be relevant to how Lively obtained her PGA mark. The PGA has a list of requirements for meeting the criteria for obtaining the mark. As an actor, Lively would have needed to carry out multiple duties beyond her role as an actor. Okay, so I'm going to just show you the PGA eligibility document, which I do put a link in. I'll put a link to this post or the thread actually into the comment section or the description. But there is a link in this post to this document. This is the Producers Guild of America, the rules and procedures for producers mark eligibility. So we need to go down to the eligibility. And as you can see, like here, this is guidance for specific non-producing roles, right? Producer. This is how directors get the PGA. So this is how potentially Justin Baldoni and the criteria for that, because it's different for different people. Here is the how writers would get a PGA mark on a film. And again, different. So this is the actor. So here on this table, you've got category A and category B. Category A has got one sort of criteria, but it's mandatory, right? So it's required. She cannot get it if she does not meet this. Category B has got three different options. She has to, it's here bolded and underlined, she has to meet at least 2. So just to read this, if in addition to performing the producing functions listed in category A required below, an actor also personally performs at least 2 of the functions from category B, that would be considered strong evidence that the actor has met the producer's mark standard. Okay, so let's have a look. Category A. Actor demonstrated that they personally made regular, continuous, and substantial decisions regarding production, budgetary, and legal concerns in a constructive and responsible manner. So I will leave this here, and I will come back to that when we go through the PGA letter and see what's what. Actor personally. So this is category B now, right? The first option. Actor personally, A, was involved with the project prior to all other producers. That's not going to apply. Jamie Heath and Alex Sachs were already on board. B, created, identified, or secured the intellectual property on which the project was based. So that's option in the book, basically. Lively did not do that. Justin Baldoni did. C, secured the director, writer, or financing before the film was greenlit or a majority of the financing was obtained. Actor does not get credit for securing themselves as a critical element of the film. So that's not going to apply because the project was already greenlit and the majority of the financing was already obtained. Wayfarer were putting that forward. D. Resurrected an otherwise stagnant project or significantly reimagined the script or production before the film was greenlit or the financing was obtained. Again, she did nothing before the film was greenlit or financing was obtained. And it wasn't an otherwise stagnant project. So she needs both 2 and 3. Otherwise, she doesn't meet the criteria. So 2, actor personally rendered substantial creative contributions to pre-production and production that are beyond those typical of an actor. Okay. 3, actor personally rendered substantial creative contributions to post-production that are beyond those of a typical actor. I think that definitely 3 is quite clear. She got her cut of the film. You don't, you know, if that's not substantial creative contributions to post production that are beyond those typical of an actor, I'm not quite sure what is. So we need to go back to the post, because it does give guidelines on what they're looking for. And the ones I bolded are ones that I already see evidence of. Okay. And obviously evidence of at the time. Okay, so in general, contributions to the actor's own character, marketing as an actor, and other creative input that is typical of an actor may not be counted towards the individual's producing duties if they also received an actor credit. So if she got the actor credit, she was, a film star in Blake Lively. She cannot also claim the PGA for anything she does for her own role, for her own character. So her focus has to be creative input into other roles or characters. And they do give examples. Examples of creative contributions that are not typical of an actor include, but are not limited to, selecting and approving principal cast and crew, for example, director, cinematographer, editor. Now, the 17-point demand, we know she brought on an editor. We also know she got Todd Black, a producer, brought on. That is what we knew at the time I wrote this. We now know, now we've seen her contract, that she had approval rights over the director, over her male co-star, over body doubles, hair and makeup, so on and so forth. The list goes on. Consulting on and approving costumes, makeup, and hair on characters not played by the actor. Specifically when it comes to costumes, makeup, and hair, I had no idea that there was no real evidence. We now know that it's more than likely she did, but the information we had was limited. Next one, viewing and commenting on dailies that do not involve the actor's character. Well, she had a tantrum over the dailies. She wanted the dailies. She even told, is it Sony or WME, he's not giving me the dailies, he's dismissing me as a woman. And made reference to the fact that her HR letter is ready to go. Or HR complaint. So yeah, there's that. So she met that criteria. And consulting on the overall edit with the director, editor, studio, etc. Which we know she did that. So I then go on to say, as a result of Lively's quote unquote concerns, you can see I put quotes around it, she was able to 1. Bring on her choice of producer and editor. 2. Comment on young Lily's dailies and renegotiate control over Isabella Farah's nudity rider. 3. Claim to need time in the editing room because of all of her script changes. But also having so much influence over the script effectively contributed to allowing her to meet the requirements for the PGA mark, because category B requests 2 out of 3 requirements, with one suggestion being 2, actor personally rendered substantial creative contributions to pre-production and production that are beyond those of a typical actor. Obviously now we're aware as well, she got the cut. So she was in the editing room, pretty much, hijacked the editing room. So that would count as post-production. So that's 2 and 3 met. I made a note here just because, again, at the time, the information we had, right? And thinking that she, the main part of her script rewrites involved the rooftop scene. I did make the note to myself, kind of almost, if it turns out that it was actually her husband who wrote the scene changes that she claims were hers, then that raises questions about whether she met this requirement for the PGA mark. We now know she rewrote a lot of the script. So, without further ado, I think we need to go to the PGA letter. I've been told this is lengthy, word salady, cringy, everything. I'm going to leave the PGA eligibility criteria up just so we can just recap at the end. Like, did she, according to her, meet the requirements? Okay, so from Blake Lively, 3 o'clock in the morning. Who the hell's writing to the PGA at 3 o'clock in the morning? Subject: Blake Lively, PGA. It ends with us. Time sensitive, please. Oh God. If you're putting please in the subject heading, it feels like it's going to be a begging letter. Okay, dear Producers Guild of America, I'm writing you with meaningful urgency and also respect. I'm sorry, but I'm asking for your attention in your attention to this in a crunched time period. I'm positive you have matters much more significant than this, but I bare my heart to you. God. Asking for you to take a look at my note as this film and my work in it off camera means more to me than anything I've done in my 20-year career. That would probably include work on Green Lantern, where she met her husband, who she has 4 children with. Oh, I feel like I'm going to get annoyed. I'm trying not to, but I feel like this is going to annoy the shit out of me. So buckle up for any rants. I will comment on things though as I'm going through it. I'm not just doing a read through. I'm going to give opinions on stuff. Okay, and I am trying to read this in a flary Blake Lively type voice, minus the accent. Okay. There's been a recent update/change with regard to my official role in the upcoming film. It ends with us releasing August 9th. Just a few days ago, I was officially granted the title of producer after a year and a half of asking and working tirelessly to prove the validity of that title. Most people, if they had to ask for something for a year and a half, would stop asking because they would take the hint that the people are asking, if they haven't already given it to them, don't think that she deserves it. I've produced every moment of this, every moment. From pre-production, through production, into post, and now into marketing and worldwide release. I'm grateful that the contract has now been revised to reflect the immense work that I put in. I'm writing to ask for the great honor of receiving the PGA tag. I don't take that lightly. In our household, that's the highest honor in film, so I understand the gravity of the ask. So when she says in her household, is she asking for this or is Ryan Reynolds? I also understand the absurdity of asking this late. Without the official title of producer, my hands were tied. I couldn't apply when I wanted to. No crew could tick me in the box of producers who should receive the tag when polled. I'm pleading now because I'm confident that with all my soul, I'm confident that with, I can't even say it. I'm confident that with all my soul, that if you saw what I did on this film, you would agree that this mark is, without question, deserved. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, this is going to be a difficult one to get through without laughing. I'll lay out how we got here below because I appreciate that this isn't the way the process usually works. You granted the PGA tag to 2 producers, Alex Sachs and Jamie Heath, on April 18th. I'm in full support of their tags. Who the hell asked? Did anyone ask if she supports this? My understanding is that they are both in support of mine. I wonder if she actually asked Jamie Heath if he supports, because if she's been asking for the PGA, the producer credit for a year and a half and been told no, it doesn't make sense that Jamie Heath then is now suddenly in support of her having a PGA credit. Okay. I have a note from Alex below attached, but I have a note from Alex attached below, along with 16 other department heads. And Jamie, if asked, I'm sure he would confirm the work I did. So I'm guessing there's no letter from Jamie attached to this at this point. Yeah, and because I thought they wrote their letter in July or something, very end of June, July, and this is dated June, so she can't have had Jamie Heath's letter at this point. So much has changed since they filed for their tag, the most significant being that the cut of the film that was selected to be released is my cut. Oh my god. Right. Again, I'll say it, right? Firstly, she kept saying all the way through it was Sony's cut, but clearly it's not. She keeps referring to it as her cut. Also, I'm pretty sure Sony said, or they were trying to say, look, your cut didn't score high enough. And then she said, I don't care. Full steam ahead. Colin Hoover wants my cut. I want my cut. Taylor Swift, for some explicable reason, I'm not sure why she even gets a vote in this, wants her cut. And that is why her cut was quote unquote selected. It wasn't selected, it was demanded. Which I'll lay out in more detail later. But I imagine you appreciate the gravity of that advancement alone since April 18th. As to not get too bogged down in more of the why now details, I'll focus on the facts of the work I did in each stage of production, bulleted out below. I apologize for how dense it is, but it's important to me to lay out all I've done when asking for such a significant consideration from you all at the PGA. I'm changing the font to make the read as easy as possible. Oh my god. Okay, so this is development pre-production. I think that's supposed to be I led the location shift from Boston to New Jersey and helped to solve all cost and schedule logistics associated. No one asked for that change. I got the impression that she wanted that change because she didn't want to, drag her ass over to Boston for filming. She wanted to be closer to her home. She was 15 minutes away from her home. But no one actually said, "Oh, well, we need to find a new location." I mean, everything was ready to go in Boston. I'm just trying to recall here. Yeah, that was something that she specifically asked for her. She demanded that, and Wayfarer, you're like, okay. I personally called and/or wrote emails to crew and put forth names for department head roles, including hair makeup, director of photography, costume design, transportation, security, camera operators, etc. I identified and onboarded freelance team members for the cast members, not just myself, to help achieve the goals for screen, including a fitness trainer, nutritionist, meal prep service, spray tanner, wig maker, colorist, etc. From what I remember, what that means is I remember her being given allowance for all of these things. I haven't seen any evidence that it was for all cast members, but I know she put her personal trainer in touch with Justin Baldoni, who technically is a cast member. So, from the information I'm aware of, that feels like a stretch. I reviewed and reshaped the creative of the production design for all key locations, for all characters, also made changes to use existing elements of locations to save cost. I called in favors with home design contacts to get items loaned, discounted, or gifted to save production design costs. I reviewed and reshaped the creative of the costume design for all characters. You used your friends' costumes and got Wayfarer to foot the bill. I called in favors with fashion contacts to get items loaned, discounted, or gifted to save costume design costs. Again, she blew the budget on the wardrobe. How? How did she save costs? I reviewed and reshaped the creative of the prop and floral design for the key film element of the film. I've seen no evidence she did that. I'm not saying she didn't, but I haven't seen the evidence. I did outreach to florists all over Instagram and beyond, helping with the marketing activation to feature a florist in the film and connected the best names with production. I went through hundreds of casting tapes to help find the rest of the cast, including our stars Atlas, Young Lily, Young Atlas, and Jenny Bloom. Okay, I mean, I'm aware of her involvement with Young Lily. I haven't heard anything about her being involved with the others. Wouldn't surprise me though. I rewrote the script to improve the role of Jenny Bloom after 3 actresses turned it down. I personally identified and put forth Amy Morton to play Jenny Bloom. After the rewrite of Jenny Bloom was implemented, Amy accepted our offer. Okay, this is news. I worked alongside my agents as well as other talent agencies to put forth names for Atlas, sending links to their work, and in many cases, reaching out to their teams directly to get interest and availability. I screen tested with all options for Atlas. When we struck out with those actors, we offered the role to our original choice, Brandon Sklenar, who then turned it down. So I had my team get involved in convincing him to do it. I wrote him a personal letter as well. He accepted the role. I gave the director references for the characters, dialogue, and visuals. I mean, she gave the director a long list of, hostage demands. I Zoomed with every cast member to get their notes and ideas. I then did significant rewrites of the script to incorporate all the notes of the cast, studio, distributor, author, director, and myself, since our writer was not available at that time because she was on another job. The writer was not available. I don't believe this. I don't believe it. I don't. I also addressed scheduling, financial, location, weather, and or other logistical constraints in that rewrite. I pushed the studio distributor and director to change the rating of the film from an R rating to a PG-13 because there was a significantly bigger market opportunity with PG-13, which the book captured. I argued that in order to replicate the book's success with the screen adaptation, we needed to serve the same age range of audience. The issue was the studio already had a deal in place with the distributor to deliver an R-rated film. I had multiple conversations with all parties, helping to convince everyone of the shared bigger opportunity for all, resulting in everyone agreeing to make the film PG-13, which is where it stands today. Okay, translate. She took out all the sex scenes. Or nearly all of them. Production. I constantly broke schedule and budget in pre-production and then daily and often hourly during production. I unfortunately was responsible for the firing of our first AD, Julie, as we were not making not making our days for the first many weeks, and I had the 20 years experience to see that the days were not boarded well enough to from. I don't like the way she's writing this. I had the 20 years of experience to see that the days were not boarded well enough from the get go, and her experience was not appropriate for the film we were making. I flagged security risks and pushed to execute getting the entire crew badges. I'd never been on a set without them, yet they were not put in place for this production. We were having breaches where fans were filming our monitors and uploading the scenes to TikTok because no one knew who was filming and who wasn't. Badges were in place days later. Okay. I mean, I don't entirely disagree with that. That does make some logistical sense from a perspective of security. But also, she didn't like the fact that people were filming behind the scenes because they caught her in her dress and her awful clothes and then criticized the hell out of it. That's and also Jenny Slate objected to fans loitering because she didn't want to be made to go and interact with them because she's an antisocial bint. That's what prompted that. But also the bonus that she can throw it in this and say, look what I did. I made this huge change. If I believe that she was genuinely coming from it was a security risk. That was my only concern. It was my priority, and that's why I put it in place. I can understand that. But I don't think that's all it was. I flagged and had the production name changed to an alias, which is standard in my experience. This changed all signs for locations, call sheets, transportation, etc., as the film's true title was all over every sign, identifier, and correspondence. As a result of using the actual title, we were flooded with unwanted security breaches, paparazzi, large crowds, and leaks. I helped to block the staging of every scene for shooting efficiency, sometimes asking to block the night before so the crew could pre-light without wasting the time of pulling the cast from hair and makeup to rehearse. When we came back after the strikes, I was writing as we were shooting to meet real-time hurdles and demands with regard to schedule, budget, and creative needs. I reviewed and instated COVID protocols when we had an outbreak and lost many key crew members. Well, what does she mean, lost many key crew members? They died? What happened? They left because there was an outbreak of COVID on the set? Or is this because at that time when they had an outbreak, not long after, she also fired some of his key crew members, like the first AD. I managed the politics and HR concerns on a daily basis, acting as an intermediary to keep crew and cast engaged, safe, and on board. Okay. I have a problem with this. In many of the the cast depositions, they were asked, were you aware of Wayfarer's HR policy? Did you get training? Did you get this? Did you know who to report HR concerns to? And they all sat there going, no, 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 no. And here she is now sitting here after herself moaning about the lack of HR, saying, well, I was effectively the HR. So how come no one in the depositions said, yeah, we all went to Blake Lively? And where did she take people's concerns? What did she do with them if she was effectively the HR? So far, this is just I don't believe most of this. I shortlisted with the director, DP, and first AD. Oh, is it shortlisted? I don't know. I'm not in the industry, so I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Mandy. Not usually all at once, just when it was asked of me. On round two of the film, we shot half of the film before the strikes and half after. I would speak to our first AD, Chris Sargent, who was the new first AD to replace Julie Bloom. Every night for nearly an hour on my drive home, and once I arrived home to assess and rework our schedule to help make our days, which we were struggling to make. I was able to omit 3+ days of shooting via rethinking the schedule, changeovers, locations, stunts, weather, and adapting the script to accommodate. Again, that's at odds with what Justin Baldoni said. He said that she was adding time because things suddenly needed to be moved, changed, new, because you need permits. It's not as simple as, right, well, today we're going to shoot this and then turn up at the location and just go in and do a quick shoot and then leaving. You need permits for things. You need to make sure health and safety is in place. You've got to be all set up. People have to have time to plan, rehearse. It's just not that simple. And Justin Baldoni made it clear that she actually caused chaos by making very last minute changes, often with less than 24 hours notice. I was the director's partner in all creative and logistical concerns, helping to execute the best outcome for the film. I would push back when needed. I would support when needed. No, you wouldn't. The film is and was always my top priority. Okay. This is, I think, one hurdle that's going to affect her employee. Like, I'm just an employee. I was powerless. I was the director's partner in all creative and logistical concerns. She's basically saying that she was equal to the director. It doesn't sound like, there was, like, he had all the power. And so none of this is giving me Justin Baldoni had all the power, but the wording of that specifically does undermine her claim that, well, I was just an employee. I watched the monitor between every take just to be sure that everything that ended up on screen from every department was best service in the film and led the changes needed to get there when applicable. When issues arose, I led the hiring of a freelance producer to help balance the set, the incredible Todd Black. Again, I question the necessity of Todd Black. It's not needed. But that's for the tick box of, well, I hired a producer. I led hiring a new intimacy coordinator. They had one, and there was no issue with the one they had. And intimacy doubles to help block out the sensitive scenes for both safety and shooting efficiency. So they already had the intimacy coordinator, and she already had it written into her contract that she had approval rights over intimacy doubles. Not just for herself, but for Justin Baldoni too. Which is just absolutely wild. Again, all the way through, right? And this goes back to the point I made about Isabella Ferrer. She changed basically took away their autonomy, human beings, actors' autonomies, and controlled everything and everyone. I helped manage the logistics and protections of a closed set. All sets were closed. Justin Baldoni has already said that. Like, they adhered to closed set, regardless of whether it was needed or not. When there were oversights, I stopped production to make sure the set was safe. No, you didn't. You were on fucking strike. Oh my God, this is such a lie. You went off on strike. You went to London and then you refused to come back, and it was timed beautifully with when your husband finished filming Deadpool and Wolverine. Because she wouldn't come back any earlier. She held up the production. This is what I mean. Like, when she's saying, "Oh well, I saved time and I shaved off 3 days of production." She caused them months of delay because she would not come back from London, where Ryan Reynolds was filming Deadpool and Wolverine. I stopped production to make sure the set was safe and complying with all players, nudity riders, and contracts. You didn't sign your own fucking nudity rider. Oh my god. I made sure cast members had mini green rooms on set when I noticed the time we lost to cast leaving to go back to their more distant green rooms. I called and led meetings with all department heads, the studio, and the distributor when we had extenuating circumstances challenging our production plan, including the wildfires as well as picketers from the writer strike. No, she did. She fucked off. She, she didn't do shit. She pissed off and joined her husband, and then refused to come back. I acted as a liaison between casts and their reps in finding solutions to finishing the film. Oh my god. I also acted as an intermediary between other actors, their reps, and also crew members who were coming to me for guidance and help because they were concerned about being replaced with people who would cross the WGA picket line. That's not true. I absolved them of their concerns of being replaced by standing in support of the WGA myself and not crossing a picket line myself. Justin Baldoni very clearly said that, if people were happy to cross the picket line and continue working, great, but that was a choice. Lively didn't want to come. It's under the guise of, I don't want to cross the picket line. In reality, she just joined Ryan Reynolds in the UK. This is like a complaint. Either things happened and they're being misrepresented in here, or they flat out did not happen. I said I was going to get annoyed. I've been doing this long enough now that I know how I'm going to react to something before I've even read it. All right, post. No, this is not going to be any better. I've spent, at minimum, 10 hours a day, every day since April 22nd on the post of this film. Yes, but you weren't invited. She wasn't wanted in there. And that's not true either, because she had days where she was like, yeah, I'm not going to go in. I'm not going in today. It's not been every day. My longest days have been 22 hours, and that has happened multiple times. I realize this sounds like an exaggeration. Spoiler alert, it is. Especially because for periods of that, I was shooting another film or raising my 4 children. How the fuck are you spending 22 hours a day, out 24-hour day on this film, whilst also shooting another film? Never mind raising the 4 children. How are you? It's impossible. It is literally impossible. I cannot believe the PGA swallowed this crap. But anyone on this post process will verify this is unfortunately true. I've been sleeping on average 1.5 to 3 hours a night for over 2 months to get this film recut, reworked, and done. I worked with the film's original editor, Una, for 10 days in New York, starting on April 22nd to be sure the director's goals and preferences for the film were understood and honoured before starting with my own editors to expand to the audience and commerciality of this film. How can... To be sure the director's goals and preferences for the film were understood and honoured, yet she didn't let him see the fucking film until the premiere. The plan was to start with my own editors on May 2nd, but it was key to me to honour all players. So I offered the extra 10 days to handle this most responsibly and thoughtfully. Oh my god. I worked with my own editors May 2nd onward, running a room of sometimes 3 editors at once as we pushed to meet the tight timing for 3 test screenings and eventually pitch a lock. I remain working with one of my editors, Alan Baumgarten, as we finish out the final details of the film. I brought on a new composer, the duo Rob Simonson and Duncan Blickenstaff, personally reaching out to Rob and convincing him to join us with very limited time, troubleshooting financial and logistical hurdles to get him on board. I hand selected. She fired the original composer, by the way, because Taylor Swift didn't like the original composer. That's what happened there. I hand selected 90% of the songs in the film. I got my friends to give us their songs to put in the film and didn't put much more thought into it. And worked alongside Season Kent, our music supervisor, to find the rest or shape the ones we do have with our music editor, Robbie. I also work with her to this day on budget considerations and switch out songs as needed to meet our budget. I worked with Spring, the head of clearances at Sony, on song budget and clearances. I personally called and emailed many of the artists to convince them to let us use their songs and have also negotiated with them on pricing. 4 of the biggest artists included in our film passed on the film until I personally called them. You were their best friend, for fuck's sake. She's representing this as it was a lot of work that went into me convincing these artists like Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey to, involve themselves and their music with this video and have it all associated. What? Is this Taylor, I would do anything for you, Swift? You had to personally convince. No one wanted Taylor Swift's song. I'm not saying it wasn't a good choice. I like the song. It actually did work well with the film. So I'm not knocking the choice, but I am knocking the way that it is being framed here. Like Wayfarer wanted Taylor Swift's song, and Taylor Swift's like, nah. So Blake Lively come running to the rescue, like, don't worry, love, I've got this. I'll just make a quick call and pull some favors. That's not what happened. They did not want Taylor Swift or Lana Del Rey songs. Blake Lively wanted that, and I bet it took little to no effort to get them. Oh my God. I'm going to start that sentence again. 4 of the biggest artists included in our film passed on the film until I personally called them, wrote letters to them, and then finalized with their representatives. Oh, you're full of shit. I've worked with our sound engineers and mixers for multiple test screenings, and now the final mix, sitting in the Sony mix stage until 2 a.m, working every detail, and I remain in the thick of that work, listening into mix sessions on my custom Dolby headphones. Is it important to let the PGA know that you have custom Dolby headphones? Was that important? Was that critical? Made for our music stage, as well as coming out to LA next week for the final week of Mix in Person. I worked with our musical editor, Robbie, to be sure every moment of each song is coming in and out at the exact right spots and with the right emotion, often coordinating with him, Season, our music supervisor, and our composers, Rob and Duncan. So that is an additional part, I guess, to the PGA eligibility. Whereas, it's quite obvious she did meet point 3, the post-production substantial creative input, by having her cut of the film. But also she needs to demonstrate, well, it's more than that, I guess, and that would be, now it makes sense why a composer, getting to hire a composer, was kind of, bartered for in the 17-point negotiation. Was it a negotiation? It was negotiated somewhere that she would be able to do that. That's because this is all like stuff that happens post-production, the music and everything. That all gets added after the actual photography is shot. So that is why she needed all of this. So now she can say, look, I met that criteria too. I've been on Zoom for the cast ADR, their sessions. I've been working on the WFX, overseeing every shot that makes it into the film. I've been working with the graphics team, helping to choose and shape the fonts of the title and credits. I've worked with the legal, the studio, and the distributor on credits and cards. I appealed to Columbia Pictures to grant Isabella Ferrer the introducing card. So that's an introducing Isabella Ferrer because it's her first film, marking only the sixth time they've granted that title in their 100-year history. I'm about to dive into the DI in person this week and next week alongside Stefan from Company 3 for the colour timing. I've been in touch with our DP, Barry, on the resizing or digital shifts in shots to be sure his vision is executed. I brought the author of the book that the film is based on into the fold, involving her intimately in the edit to be sure we are best honouring the book and the audience in order to capture the success of her novel in our film. I pushed for 3 test screenings of the cut I was asked to execute and oversee. You did not push for 3 test screenings. You said she had one, and when she didn't do better than Justin Baldoni, she didn't want it anymore. The text messages show that. I pushed for 3 test screenings of the cut I was asked to execute and oversee. You were not asked to execute and oversee. So I could capture audience feedback and scores, as well as our creative team's opinions to shape the cut for maximum commercial success. What a load of shit. I also had multiple calls with the distributor of the film and Screen Engine who ran our test screenings to evaluate the scores and integrate their feedback as well. You didn't give a shit. You told Sony when they told you, gave you the feedback, you said full steam ahead. I don't care. My cut or nothing. I'm paraphrasing, but I need to do. I'd love to do a red lines of this, where you strike what the part she's saying and then kind of replace it with the truth. I would personally read all 100 plus pages of every booklet and scorecard. She didn't read the book. Didn't read the book, but she read booklets and scorecards to learn from the feedback of every screening. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. She wouldn't have cared if everyone thought her cut was pants. She still would have insisted that, well, me, Colleen Hoover, and my friend Taylor Swift want this. I re-edited the film each time, utilizing the learnings from the audience, the creative team, the distributor, the author, and the other producers. Do you notice the one person who's omitted from that list there is the director? And she didn't. And when she says other producers, she's talking about Alex Sachs, maybe Todd Black, but we know she's not talking about Jamie Heath. What essentially happened with the film was people didn't like her film. They preferred Justin's, and she ended up having to put a lot of Justin's cut back in to her, what ended up being her cut. So, and that's the only way she got it through. I held my own friends and family test with the top filmmakers I know, asking for their input. So she held a sycophant party to stoke her own ego. The cut of the film that I led was selected as the version of the film that will be released on August 9th. Well, I've already covered that. I won't go over it again, but it's not quite how she's framing it. Marketing and release. Starting with the initial trailer, I called a meeting with Josh Greenstein, president of Sony, in February 2024, and the entire marketing team at Sony to lay out the angle of the campaign. There was no film for anyone to watch yet, so the trailer they made understandably didn't capture what the film would be. I walked them through the film, cited dailies, and down to which take with time codes where they could find footage to build the best trailer. Once they resubmitted the trailer, I worked with them on every frame of the creative, factoring in any social sensitivities. I worked hand in hand with Brigitte Wright on this. I personally secured Taylor Swift, who will do anything for me, to loan her song to our trailer and marketing efforts, which helped it to be the largest debut of a film-led trailer. A film mom-led film trailer of all time. Wild. So proud. And I bet that cost Wayfarer a fortune. I speak with marketing and PR at Sony no less than 5 times a day. Oh my God. Every day for 2 months now. I often have Zooms with upwards of 10 people on their teams. I've worked in person with them via text, via calls, via Zoom, on the ground during press. I am available and reachable to every single team member and their assistants at all hours, 7 days a week. Anyone can and will confirm. I'm working closely with the international teams on everything from posters, commercials, book covers, and beyond by territory. I'm working closely with the digital team on everything from the social media pages down to the color palette, graphics, language, copy, cadence, even what font is used, and when and how. I'm working with the publishing side on book covers, the look, layout, and usage. I helped to design our first major PR marketing event, which was 2 weekends ago in Dallas. I personally begged Tom Rothman, head of Sony, to allow me to show the film to 3,000 fans as an early preview. Couple of things, as I'm sure people are expecting here. One, she admitted she took that without telling anyone. There was no, I went to Sony and I begged them. In fact, she said in the Book Bonanza interview, I begged them to let me take it, and they said no. So she was like, fuck it, and took it anyway. Also, right. So I've seen in, I think it was Deposition. Deposition. Was it Ange Giannetti's or Josh Greenstein or Danny Greenberg? It was someone either at WME or Sony said, it was Danny Greenberg. That's it. It was Danny Greenberg, and they were talking about Justin's face on the posters and the film by credit, and what ended up being, the fact that the poster, the hero poster, ended up being Lively on her own as that book cover. And the testimony given was, well, Sony decided they designed and did the decoration for the Dallas the Book Bonanza thing, and they basically put out thousands of those images, and Blake didn't know about it. That's how it was framed, right? Sony did that, Blake didn't know about it, and then it was so popular that they just recreated it. So, but here, she says herself, I helped design our first major PR marketing event, which was 2 weekends ago in Dallas. That's Book Bonanza. So she's admitting she was actually very involved in that event, which is how Justin Baldoni was cut out of the the promotional poster. Okay, I'm going to continue. I had to first finish the film with all of his and the audience's notes from our previous review, which I pulled off in time, so he agreed. I went over all the talking points and scripts for the panel and helped tee up the film and the cast. When my co-star had a scheduling conflict and had to drop out the event, I got on the phone separately with him, his agent, and his publicist to help get him back on board. So she's talking about Brandon Sklenar, because she's not talking about her co-star Justin Baldoni, who was kicked out of the event. I got our cast and author to help me personally introduce all 14 theatres screening the film. I bought patches myself on Amazon to hand out to fans to match our outfits as a PR push and social media activation. I identified and brought on photographer Jade Green to capture the weekend of content. I helped build a creative content day in or downtime in Dallas, overseeing the creative of the scripts and content used. I reviewed and approved the influencers we collaborated with. Okay. I personally styled my co-star Isabella Farah. She says here because she didn't have clothes for the shoot. However, I don't know. I've always seen that she treats Isabella Ferrer as like a doll version of herself that she can manhandle and control. It's weird. It's a weird setup. When we were struggling to find an image for the poster, I went through the film to find the best still to be used for our first poster and helped identify the best layout to frame it in. There we go. When we were struggling to find an image for the poster, I went through the film to find the best still. It was her. Or this is a lie. One of those things. Both of those versions of events cannot be true. One of them is a lie. I reviewed, gave feedback, and then approved the theatre standee for all theatres. I am producing 2 content days this week with my husband and my production company, Maximum Effort. I thought it was his production company, Maximum Effort. To grab more PR and marketing materials with 8 cast members and 2 producers and the author for release, but not the male lead or the director. I've had calls with the international team to help adjust the release schedule by territory and led the conversation about adding on international press stops and tour dates given the success of the response to the film and materials thus far. I've led the conversation to get started on a China cut in an effort to be accepted for release there, and will have a Zoom with the decision makers for release in China in the coming weeks. I'm helping to oversee the sets being built for our content days, looking ahead to our junkets for ways to reuse these sets for cost effectiveness as well as to inspire maximum press and influencer engagement. I've been on the phone with the cast representatives, producers, showrunners, tour managers, spouses, travel agents, and beyond to coordinate their schedules for press, going as far as successfully begging their bosses to release them for press for our film. I reached out to sponsors to host screening to help absorb marketing costs, i.e. Chanel, who will be hosting a screening the day after the premiere for us. I personally reached out to sponsors to help with costs for our premiere and after party. Wayfarer paid for it. Helping to secure a deal with the Boulud Group to host our party there, etc. And I still have months ahead of me to finish this film in both what you see on screen as well as how we sell it to audiences the world over. As much as this tag means to me, and it means everything, what I'm in fight of most is the film being as great as it possibly can be. So ultimately, that's been my most eloquent energy. I think you get the idea, though. As promised, I'm including below letters from our department heads in support of my application for the PGA mark. We're already at an hour and we're not finished it, so I'll do the additional letters separately in a separate video. I won't read all of them, but yeah. Main names really: Alex Sachs, Chris Sargent, who she brought on. Her composers that she brought on: Colleen Hoover, Ange Giannetti, Josh Greenstein, Todd Black, who she brought on. To be clear, while asking to be granted the PGA mark myself, I do believe that both Alex Sachs and Jamie Heath should keep the PGA mark they received. They were both there every single day in every meeting and decision. At this time, you will not find a letter from the director, Justin Baldoni, or other PGA producer, Jamie Heath. Jamie and Justin will not be contesting my mark. Will they not? Will they not? They will not be contesting my mark. They just, as of this moment, will be writing a letter to you like all the rest of the department heads did. This should have raised questions. I'm sorry. This paragraph alone, this sentence, should have been raising red flags. You will not find a letter from these 2 people, but trust me, bro, they support this. They just won't be writing a letter to you like everyone else has written a letter for me, but they're not going to be right now. But it's this bit: Jamie and Justin will not be contesting my mark. Just sounds slightly threatening. When you take into account what we know now and the extortion tactics, that reads as a bit threatening to me. I imagine if you reached out to them, they would confirm the extent of my involvement. Please don't take my word for it, though. Please take the rest of our department heads below, who you are more than welcome to reach out to at any time. Please do. Their contact info is included in the letters. Finally, I thank you for reading all of this. It's taken every bit of me, practically, logistically, creatively, and emotionally. So thank you for considering this. I also know and appreciate, again, this is not how this Mark grant goes down. I wish I was given the credit for my work sooner, so I was able to be given a fair shot at applying the right way. I know precedent is important, and on that, my dear friend Bradley Cooper gave me a pep talk about pushing for this, citing, and he told me I could mention to you that a similar situation happened to him on Nightmare Alley. He was hired as an actor, but ended up extensively producing the film. And a month before release, he was given producer credit. He applied for a Hail Mary PGA mark with the support of the film's crew, was granted it. So I'm hoping and praying that it's possible here as well. Do you know, is it not sounding like, because you got Ryan Reynolds took over, is it Blade Runner? Ryan Reynolds took over the Deadpool franchise. Blake Lively takes over It Ends With Us. And now Blake Lively references a situation which seems to be similar in that Bradley Cooper was taken on as an actor, ended up doing so much production that he qualified for a last minute Hail Mary PGA mark. And then he gave this advice to Blake Lively. And now we know why Bradley Cooper was thanked at the end of the film. Did Bradley Cooper take over Nightmare Alley to get a PGA mark? Sounds like, I don't know. What's that word that especially this lot that seem to use it quite a lot when they reference a group of people who do things that disgust them or they don't like, a group of people who influence each other to do things that they don't particularly like. What was the word they used for Justin Baldoni? A cult. It seems like this is a group of actors. They seem to be in some kind of group or cult, if for want of a better word, where they are influencing each other on how to do things that are immoral, maybe unethical, and they support each other to do it. Oh, here we go. And here comes the sex card. We knew it was coming. As a woman in this industry for 20 years and the mother of 3 daughters, for fuck's sake. A big reason I'm pushing to be acknowledged truthfully and accurately for the work I've done on this film is because I believe that it's an important thing in this day and age for a woman to be given credit for the work she did. It's as simple as that. I earned it 50 times over again on this job, but I may not get credit for it. And that hurts, not just for me, but for all the women who are told they can't be given credit because there are already too many female producers. We do the work anyway. We have to fight exponentially harder to be acknowledged, and each of our fight paves the way for the next producer. The work she's done to get this credit is nothing more than make false allegations and represent innocent misunderstandings and then leverage them. That I hate it, right? I appreciate, right, how hard an industry is sometimes for women. Absolutely. When I first went into my first job in a law firm, and I had like my equivalent male counterpart who started the same day. We had the same qualifications, same experience, etc., etc. I was the one that had to go make the tea. I was the one that had to make the tea, whilst my male counterpart was paid more and included in decisions, and his opinions were listened to. If I voiced an opinion, it would be overlooked. But if he voiced a very similar opinion or the same opinion, it was almost like they'd all stand up and give him an ovation. And that absolutely happens. I've even had to take legal action and sue a law firm who arguably should know better because they know the law, for discrimination, for both on sex discrimination and on equal pay. That's happened. So I'm not discounting or dismissing what she is saying, that, women sometimes do find it harder to get the opportunities that men do. I'm not a raging feminist, but I believe in equality. But equality is not throwing out the I'm a woman and a mother of 3 daughters to put pressure, rather than, like, why didn't you just let them judge you on your merits first before saying, it's coming to the assumption that if they say no, it has anything remotely to do with the fact that you're a woman. It might not. I hate DEI. I hate DEI. I believe that people should be judged on merits. But also, when I look at her merits and knowing what I know and the evidence I've seen, I know her merits are bullshit. So what can you say? What she's doing through all of this is utilizing her gender, utilizing her motherhood, utilizing her famous friends and her contacts. And then she's implying that she's done all of these things because she was asked to, when that is not true. She didn't have to do any of it. And in fact, she was asked, it was not wanted. And she knows that as well, because, she pushed her way through anyway. So let's continue and just wrap this crap up. So I implore you at the Producers Guild of America to look into all the facts here. Please don't take my word for it. That's sound advice. Please do the work. I'm sorry to ask this of you this late in the game, but as you see, I wasn't able to sooner. I promise you, you will be granting a tag to someone who will give everything of herself, who gave everything of herself to this film to earn this honor, and it's something I will cherish for life. I hope you will join me in standing for what's right and true with regard to who has earned the PGA mark for the film It Ends With Us while we still have time. We lock and ship picture imminently, so I thank you for your attention to this in such limited time. It's in your hands now. I can sleep well knowing I did all I can do. Thank you again for your time and consideration. With respect and gratitude, Blake Lively Reynolds. Okay. I mean, I've spoken a lot about it anyway, so I'm not going to rehash what I've already said. In terms of this letter, though, it is one of the most sniveling, groveling, vomit-inducing, begging. It is absolute crap. It's absolute crap. I do not like the use of the agenda card. I really don't. I do not like the assumption that, she is entitled to something because she's a woman. And I'll say that as a woman myself who has had to work hard to get where I've got in life. And I've never uttered the words, well, it's hard for me as a woman to get somewhere, so And that's exactly what she did to Justin Baldoni to get him to agree to her having a go at the rooftop scene, was to say, well, I keep getting overlooked. If you look at it, it's exactly, it's an MO. She used that almost word for word in her message to Justin Baldoni that we all read. Well, I keep being overlooked in the industry as a woman, blah, blah, blah. I don't get opportunities. I don't get chances. Then she used it with, it was someone from WME, I think, or Sony, when she was relaying that Justin Baldoni didn't want her in the edit, and she was like, "Well, it's not fair. I'm a woman." Blah 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 blah. So this is a pattern, right? And it pissed me off. Pissed me off. She did it for the rooftop scene because she was taken over from a woman's. She was rewriting a script that was already written by a woman. It did not need another woman to come in and have a go at it. But then she announced that her male husband actually wrote it. So what happened to I get overlooked? Unless she's either lying or she is overlooked, but it's her husband. Her husband comes in and takes over everything she does. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he wrote this. This sounds very Ryan Reynolds. Especially that end bit. Um and it kind of bothers me that this oh, I don't know if it'll work. Is it gonna work? Yeah. Sorry, that's not the greatest. But this paragraph, that is a red flag for anyone. How anyone read this and thought, well, hold on a minute, the director is not gonna write you a letter of support? Why not? Why is the other PGA producer not writing a letter of support? Yeah. This is gonna I think this is gonna have a huge undermining effect as well on her argument that she's just merely an employee with no power. And she literally starts and says, I did everything to every aspect of this film. And, you know, I don't know how you can then still claim that you are an employee who is powerless against your boss, the director. I just don't think you can do it. And I've already said the fact that she could simply approve the director and the same person as her male co-star, as well as his body doubles and stunt doubles and everything else. The fact that she had those rights over his autonomy tells me that she was not merely a powerless employee. Number one. But also, there is this recurring theme, especially with Isabella Farah and with Justin Baldoni, that these people who had rights of say and their own opinions, and they're able to exercise their own free will, and she did not let them. So I'll leave it there.